Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see you all. We're kind of on the home stretch here now, so it's exciting to think that, after almost a year now that all of our efforts will be coming to an end, and hopefully we can deliver something, of value to the town. We still have a little bit of work to do over the next month, so hopefully we can get through it fairly quickly. I guess the first item here on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on May 5th. So I will entertain a motion from someone to approve those.
I, Thomas Golden, motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Is there a second?
Darren Boston, second the motion.
Thank you, Darren. Any discussion on the minutes at all? Okay, then Josh, we'll need a roll call to approve the minutes, please.
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you. All righty, public comment. I don't see anyone on. Josh, is there anybody in the waiting room or anything? No?
Nope.
No, okay. All right, we'll move beyond that into old business. We don't really have any old business left over from our last meeting.
Can I ask a question, Ed?
You bet.
Did you find out about our expiration date?
Yes, yeah, we do. Our terms do expire the end of this month. But I've been told I said we'll probably need to extend into June. They said, no problem, just continue to do that. If they're gonna have to do a reappointment, they'll do that, soon. They're in a little bit of a turmoil right now because not only do they have a new president and vice president, but Ann Holmberg, the secretary, is moving to a new job. So they're trying to find a replacement for her. She's in transition. So there's a lot going on right now. So this is something that's on their plate. They know they got to deal with it, but we're just going to continue to move forward.
I just was curious.
Yep. Okay, so new business. We've got a couple items here tonight. The main focus of, I think, our meeting is going to review the feedback that we got from the public forums. As you know, we had 3 forums last Tuesday morning, Thursday evening, and Saturday morning. I think the first one, we had at least about a dozen people. It was a pretty good turnout. And then the one on Thursday, maybe half a dozen people. And then the one on Saturday, about the same. So I think we had somewhere in the 20 to 25 range total over the 3 meetings. But we got some good feedback. And so what I'd like to do is kind of run through that tonight. I did consolidate the notes that were taken from Janet, Tom, and that primarily Janet and Tom. And then we'll decide, how we want to deal with the feedback. Some of the things we may want to consider for updates. Some of the things we may just say, at this point, we're not, it's not something we're interested in entertaining. So I did send you a document. Hopefully you had a chance to kind of review it. But what I'll do is I'll share my screen. And then as we go through each one, we're going to have to look at the charter as well. So I'll try and bounce back and forth between the items on that list and then in the charter, so we can kind of look to see, where the location is that we would need to make a change and what change, if any, we'd want to make. All righty, any questions before we start?
Ed, I'm going to give you a piece of, whoop, and turn my volume down. If you hold the Alt button and hit Tab, you can slide between windows faster when you're going back and forth, just FYI.
Okay, thank you. I'm not a big hotkey guy, but I know they're there.
Fair enough.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, can you all see that?
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
So this was page 1 of the document that I sent, and this actually contains a few items that I had received before the public forum, so I would like to go through these quickly first, and then we'll dive into the forum. The first one here was from Carlton. He had sent me an email actually on this one, and then he reiterated it again when he commented at the public forum. He was annoyed because, when he was looking at the charter, he saw so many occurrences of the word city because everything's highlighted in green, the fluorescent green, so it stands out. So he was suggesting that we make a definition up front that basically just says, Bridgewater known as the city of Bridgewater, and then we don't have to use the word city again. But actually, there's only 7 occurrences of city of Bridgewater. The rest of the occurrences of city are related to, city council, city manager, city clerk, all those other references. So he understands, and I don't think it's something we really need to deal with at this point. But we can get back into that once we review his comments from the forum. All right, the next grouping here actually came from Janet a few weeks ago, right, Janet? You had gone through and discovered these. So the first one, Article 2.3a, it still says serves at the pleasure. And her question was, should we change this to be consistent with what we had in the town manager section 4.1 where it says serves at the will? So let me go over to the charter. I wish I could just, let's see. Do you see the charter now or not?
No.
Yeah, see, I have to stop sharing. The way Zoom works evidently is you have to stop sharing your current screen and then reshare it with the new one. It doesn't allow you to bounce back and forth between files. All right, so I'm going to go to section 2.3a. Okay, this is the council president. It says here, after the councilors elect have been sworn in, the city council shall be called together by the city clerk for the purpose of conducting an election among city council members for the office of city council president and vice president. Here it is, to serve at the pleasure of the city council. So you remember we had changed that down in 4.1 to say serves at the will of.
I mean, I would change it, right?
So that's the question here is, do we want to change it to be consistent?
Yeah, I agree that it should be changed to be consistent.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We should probably vote on these, I would imagine, right? Does it make
Yep.
Yes.
So someone may want to make a motion to make this change?
Hi, Thomas Golden. Janet, you make it. You were the one that caught it, so go ahead.
I don't know, I can't remember if I did or not, but I, Janet, motion to change the word pleasure in section 2-3A to will.
Is there a second?
I, Cleone Means, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, if not, Josh, we're making a change here to section 2-3A. Need a roll call?
Yep, Ed,
Yep.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, and I've made the change here in the charter and highlighted it in green. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to go back. Whoops, sorry. What the heck? Something happened here. Hit the wrong button, sorry. Okay, the next one is section 9-7 in the first paragraph. The suggestion is to remove the words following the conviction. So let's go back and look at that one.
Yeah, I saw that one. It was-
So this is 9(7), paragraph 1. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy. Did I already go by it?
No,
There it is. Okay, so it's down the bottom here. I'll start right here. It says, unless the appointing authority shall determine otherwise, period, the appointed official shall be automatically removed from office if the official is convicted of a felony or if the official is absent from the duties for a period of 6 months following the conviction.
that seemed weird to me in that if you're automatically going to remove somebody, how can they be absent from the duties for 6 months following a conviction? They would automatically be removed anyway. So I was like, it just seemed strange wording.
We thinking about like an appeal process, maybe?
It doesn't say that. It just
Right.
says absent from duties for the period of 6 months following the conviction. But if they're going to be removed automatically, they will be absent from the duties for the 6 months and forever, you know. So,
Well, I don't see, I guess I don't see the word automatically. If you start at the beginning, it says an official appointed
it does. It says
by,
the appointed official shall be automatically removed from
where,
office.
the appointed official, okay, shall be automatically removed from office if the official is convicted of a felony or if the official is absent from the duties for a period of 6 months following the conviction. So there's an or in there. So you're right, if the appointed official is removed automatically, it wouldn't apply, but it does apply if the official is absent from the duties for the period following 6 months following the conviction.
I still don't understand it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Is there anyone else that's having an issue with it?
To me, it sounds like
I read
it's,
it the same way Janet does, actually.
Yeah.
How can you
to me,
be
it sounds like
absent?
it's not.
So let's read through it again. The appointed official shall be automatically removed from office if the official is convicted of a felony or if the official is absent from the duties for the period of 6 months following the conviction.
So them being absent from the duties for 6 months, does that have anything to, isn't it like separate?
So what if the council was unaware that there was a conviction? What if the counselor, this is as in a counselor, what if the person just was absent, didn't show up for 6 months,
But it's,
but no one knew that the person had been convicted of anything? So wouldn't this apply in that case? It says, or if the official is absent from the duties for the period of 6 months following the conviction.
but if they're convicted, they're automatically removed anyways. So
But,
what's
but my point is, we may not know that they're convicted.
But if they're absent for 6 months, wouldn't they automatically be removed also, regardless of whether they're convicted of a felony?
Yeah, 'cause unless they get approval to be absent for 6 months, because that's comes up in another section.
Mhm.
I read it to my husband. I said, "And what do you think of this?" And he said it didn't make, I got a second opinion, and and I read it to him, and he said it didn't seem to make sense unless there's a piece missing, unless there's something missing that that's not there to make it sense, but you know, I don't know if I'm the only one.
Yeah, no, let me, I'm gonna look at the Rules and Procedures Committee version here. Just hold on a minute. I have a paper copy. I'm just gonna. Okay, so in the Rules and Procedures version, it says the appointed official shall be automatically removed from office if the official is convicted of a felony or if the official is absent from the duties for the period of 6 months, notwithstanding the permission. So that does not contain following the conviction.
Right.
So somehow that got added. Okay, all right. So someone might want to make a motion to remove this language then.
I, Janet, motion to remove the wording following the conviction in section 9-7.
Is there a second?
I, Darren Boston, second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Josh, we're taking a vote here on the change made to section 9-7.
Ed,
Yes.
Leoni,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, stop sharing that. We'll share again. Okay, this one here, number 4, same section, 9-7. It says under appointing authority is the city manager number 2. It says within 10 business days of delivery of notice. And then in section 6D, computation of time, it specifies 7 days or less. You count only business days, but more than 7, every day is counted, calendar days. Yet in this section 9-7, it's business days. Does that matter? So let's go back.
me again.
Oh, I'm glad you caught these, Janet. So let's see where that is. That's down further here. It's city manager number 2.
Oh, you passed it.
Yeah.
Right here. Okay, so it says within 10 business days of delivery of notice, the appointed official may submit a written request for a public hearing before the, okay. So what are you saying it should say here?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying it should, but because of how we determine days in, well, not we, but in section 6D, was it? If it was 7 days or less, you count business days, but then if it was more, then it's calendar days, meaning you end up counting Saturdays and Sundays. But
So this says within 10 business days.
right, and
So it would stay business days and not be calendar days then, right?
I just wasn't sure with the way we why it computes days in section 6, if that contradicts itself, or does it matter? I didn't know if it mattered, but it just, the way computation of time in section 6D, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that. I can't. 6D.
Or whatever it was that I wrote. It was in 6 something. 6, was it?
I'm trying to find it myself.
I can't remember.
So it's 995B. I'm
Nine.
sorry, 996D.
9-6, sorry.
Yeah, it says unless otherwise specified by Mass General Law in computing time under this charter, if 7 days or less, only business days, not including Saturdays, Sundays, or legal holidays shall be counted. If more than 7 days, every day shall be counted. So since it's greater than 7, you're saying why should it say business days? You just should say within 10 calendar days?
Well, that's what I was questioning. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, okay, I'm just trying to understand what your
Right.
question is. So you're basically saying since computation of time
Is greater than
business
7.
greater than 7, every day shall be counted.
I wasn't sure if that's why I said I didn't know if it mattered, but it just stuck out at me, that's all.
Now, this is actually listed multiple times here. Number 2, number 5, number 7, number 10.
I mean, it might not matter.
And then it's down below here. My own personal view on this is it's okay to have it in here for this particular purpose.
Because it says otherwise stated, correct? Does it say something like otherwise stated? It is, if it has that disclaimer, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Otherwise stated in Mass General Law.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily bother me either way. It just stuck out at me. I just wanted to make sure that it was okay.
I don't see a problem with it, to be honest with you. I mean, whether we change it to 10 calendar day, if we could change, if you want to change it to 10 calendar days. But then that's going to count weekends, right?
Yeah. Well, as I said, it doesn't bother me either way. I just want to make sure that it was okay.
I think your observations are good, Janet, because it points out some inconsistencies, right? So although it doesn't bother us personally, but it can be confusing if in one section we define 10 or more days, and then when we go into the details, we're saying 10 business days. So I would want it to be consistent.
Okay.
Although I advocate for the 10 business days, so it's either we're changing it just to 10 days, or we're changing that definition around the threshold that you just read.
I think the intent here was to have 2 weeks, right? So 2 weeks would have been the 10 business days. So if we make it 10 calendar days, then that's not going to be 2 weeks. So we would need to say 14 calendar days. I do understand your concern about consistency. So the one thing is it a problem having it in here? And I think the answer to that is no. It's not a problem having it in here the way it is. But if we feel we want to be consistent throughout the charter, and anytime we mention days, some number of days, we want to be consistent with computation of time, then I'm okay with changing it. So would someone like to make a motion to change it? And if so, what would you want to change it to?
Can you pull up, can we see the definition of the, yeah.
96D. Sorry. It's right here. It was on the same page. So it's right here.
Okay, so I'll motion. Cleone Mainville, motion to change instances where 10 business days is referenced to 14 days.
Just 14 days or calendar days?
14 calendar days.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion?
Janet, second.
Okay.
I have a offer that I know I'm about to regret doing. Would it be,
Right.
beneficial if I went through the whole charter and found every instance of the word days and then said, and put them all in a bucket and talk about it next time, and make sure it's consistent throughout the whole charter?
I mean, that's certainly a good point, because there may be other instances that we haven't addressed, right?
Yes.
So you're saying address them all at once as opposed to,
Yeah.
well, we have
Well,
a
doesn't my
motion.
motion capture that, where I say wherever there's a reference of 10 business days, or no? Is that not
Yeah, but we
comprehensive enough?
have to, someone still has to go through and do it, Cleone. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, to actually execute it versus,
Yes.
we could pass the motion now, but to actually make the changes, you're volunteering to do that? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, that doesn't change the motion though, so
No.
that's great.
I just wanted to make sure we had a a method of doing what we're voting to do.
Okay. All right, so are there any further discussion on Cleone's motion? Okay, Josh, we will need a roll call on this motion. Are you clear on what it is?
Yep, I got it.
Okay, all right, thanks.
All right, Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yeah, yes.
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay. And I just made a note that Tom's going to provide a list of all the occurrences. All right, thank you for that. All right, let's go back to the list now. All right, so this one here, oh, this was the same one, right?
Yes. Oh, no.
Use of 10 business days. Okay, all right, so we've already covered that one. The last one was section 6.8. Says we changed from direct the work to provide input. Is that really what we want? So let's look at 6.8. So is this is what is this from you, Janet? I'm assuming it is.
no, that one's not.
Okay, I'm not sure where this came from then, but I think this is what's being asked here. It says provide input as needed to the independent auditor. So it used to say direct the work of the independent auditor. So is that what I guess the question is that what we meant to capture? So this is on the annual audit. And the council is going to designate a 3-member audit committee. And the committee is going to lead the process of selecting the auditor. They're going to provide input to the auditor to help identify anything that needs to be covered in the audit. And then they're going to receive the report and present that report to the city council. So the question is, do we want them to actually direct the work of the audit? You want to be a little stronger on that. I think I'm in agreement with that, because if they're not directing the work, then who is? I mean, if they select the auditor, they provide input, and then they receive the report, what happens throughout the process? Who's providing direction to the auditor? Like oversight of what the audit, checkpoints, making sure that things are moving along on schedule, things like that. That seems like it's kind of missing here.
So it sounds good. We would need to provide the scope, define the scope of the audit, or?
I think that's part of what is included in number 2, provide input to help identify matters of concern. That would be sort of defining what should be in the audit. But maybe maybe we need to put another bullet underneath here that says, direct the work of the audit of the independent auditor.
Ed, I know we're on number 2, on number 3, it says receive the report of the internal auditor. Is that a different auditor?
No, it's
Dependent auditor?
the same.
Okay, I was looking for,
It's an internal audit. It's not an external audit, but it is being done independently. I mean, if you feel better making that independent to be consistent, we can do that as well.
I just wasn't sure if I was missing internal somewhere else, or is it supposed to be internal? This section I'm a little naive on, so.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's a good, I mean, I like the fact that you're pulling out things that need to be consistent. So let me just go back and look at I'm looking at the Rules and Procedures Committee here. 6.8. So I guess it did say direct the work of the independent auditor. And then it says receive the report of the internal auditor. So we didn't change the verbiage other than provide input. We changed it from direct the work to provide input. So we could update it and just say provide input and direct activities or direct the work as needed to the independent auditor.
So isn't there a requirement and protocol that the independent auditor need to follow? Because if they direct the work too much, then there's a conflict, right? Isn't that the purpose of an independent audit?
Right.
And so
I guess it's a question of how you define direct the work, right? I mean, do they pretty much just give some initial direction and then after that wait for the audit to be done and there's no interference at all throughout the whole process?
I mean, there's sometimes when organizations know of internal weaknesses and they may ask the auditor to kind of lean into that weakness. And that's the ethical thing to do. But the purpose of the independent audit really is for them to independently do the work so that if they're to avoid any fraud or waste of public funds. So when I read this, provide input as requested by the independent auditor, something, but it's a tough one. I don't want them to direct it too much because the purpose of an independent auditor is to, kind of avoid that conflict of interest on one level. But I have seen organizations kind of self-disclose their areas of weakness and ask an auditor to kind of lean into that.
Yeah. No, I mean, direct the work is pretty strong statement. There's no question about that.
I agree. Direct work does lead to strong, you're providing input, that would be pretty much your as needed. If you're directing the work, you're pretty much telling them maybe direction to go.
Yeah.
But I would think if you're selecting an auditor, you'd also be giving them some directions as to what you want them to look at. So I don't think you'd be providing them some direction.
Well, yeah, but that would be under providing input. That's sort of lumped into that, Darren. Input can be, what to look at, when to look at it, the schedule.
Yeah, but input could also be just suggestions, whereas direction is like specific as to what you want them to key in on. Input could be just recommendations, whereas direction is more specific as to what you want them to look at.
Right. So in an independent audit, it says here, help identify any matters of concern with respect to internal control. So you would identify the problems or the perceived issues, and then the auditor would go off and do, the work to provide feedback on what's really going on.
Could
So-
you put, sorry,
No, go ahead, Janet.
could you put, would it make sense, you could put provide input and direction as needed? Or is that redundant?
Personally, I just don't think input is strong enough. I just think it's kind of vague, because you can give them input, some suggestions, but then they can still go off in their own direction, if, depending on what they may,
Right,
what they may think is their purpose.
okay.
That's why I said, provide input and direction. That would,
Yep, that seems fine to me. And because it's as needed, right? It's not like as required or anything like that. It's just as needed. So I'm good with that.
I'll throw something out there, and, I'm not committed to it. Should it really be provide documentation as needed and requested by the independent auditor? Because really, I'm thinking if they have an independent auditor, maybe it is the coordination of the information that they need to audit versus the input.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but to me, input is all inclusive. Input is documentation. It's whatever the independent auditor needs to do the job would be classified as input. If you're saying that's too general and you want to be more specific, then okay, maybe documentation is one type of input, but like, don't they interview when audits are done? Maybe they do interviews of certain people.
They do. Yeah, they interview to see if there's internal controls.
So they'd want to know who to interview. I mean, there are all kinds of, I think, there are all kinds of different options here that the auditor can look at. I'm a little hesitant to want to try and detail it all, because maybe we'll leave something out, or we won't get it all. I think I kind of like Janet's suggestion. I mean, input and direction as needed seems to capture both giving them what they need to do it, but also, steering them in terms of maybe schedule, or who to talk to, who not to talk to, things like that. Someone wants to make a motion on this? Otherwise, we'll have to just leave it as is and move on.
Janet, motion to include the word on what section are we on? Was it 6.8? No.
I think it's 6.8. Sorry, 6.8. Yes, number 2.
Number 2, provide input and direction as needed. Adding the word direction.
And direction.
And directions, 2 words, sorry.
Okay, is there a second?
Darren Boston, second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Josh, we'll need a roll call on this. You clear on the motion?
Which paragraph was that?
So this is section 6-8, line item number 2. We're adding the words and direction.
Thank you. All right. Ed,
Yes.
Cleone?
Yeah.
Tom?
Yes.
Darren?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, now we'll get into the public forum feedback.
Wait, we didn't talk about internal versus independent. Should we vote on that? Because I
Oh.
agree with Janet that it should be independent.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me go back.
thank you.
Yeah, good catch. I'm just trying to move quickly here because we got a lot to cover. So, all right, let me go back here. Okay, so that was where now? That was down here. This was item number 3 under 6 in section 6.8. It says internal. So if someone want to make a motion to change that to independent.
I, Janet, motion on section 9-8, no, 6-8, number 3, to change the word internal to independent.
I, Cleone Mainville, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Josh, are you clear on the motion?
Yes, that was line item number 3, correct?
Line item number 3 under section 6-8.
All right, Ed,
Yes.
Leonie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, I'm just gonna make these changes here now so I don't have to come back and do it. Okay, is that all we did here? Provide input and direction as needed. Report of the independent, all right. Okay, let's go back to the list now. Thank you for catching that, Cleone. All right, moving down now to public forum number 1 on the 11th. That was last Tuesday. Mark Linday, one suggestion was on 2-6C, we should change should to must. So let me go back and look at that, 2-6C. Okay, here under 2-6C, rules of procedure, the city council shall, from time to time, establish written rules for its proceedings. Mark is saying here that this should say must. I'm not sure I
The fact that
agree
it
with.
says time, yeah, because I'm looking at time to time. That term kind of lends itself to shall, because it's not a consistent period of time, right? It says from time to time.
Right, yeah.
and
Then
then
it says the rules shall be available for public inspection.
is that,
That should probably be must.
yeah, which shall was he referring to?
Well, and there's other ones down here. I mean, look at this. The regular meetings of the city council shall be held at a time and place. I mean,
There's a lot of shalls.
yeah, but I think some of them are valid to be shalls.
Right.
To go through the whole charter.
Shall we have another discussion about shalls? This came up before. I mean, I remember us discussing.
Yeah,
this.
it is important because, again, when I worked for the federal government, we did focus on what is a shall and a must. And so I know it seems very minor, but shall tends to imply that it is optional and must is a requirement.
Is that how it's interpreted legally, Cleone? Do you know?
Yeah.
That's how we did on the federal level. I'll just share on the federal level. It was that's how we enforced federal guidance on the local level. So I cannot speak on like what Scott would speak on about the legal implications, but when we were looking to enforce federal regulations, that's what we did hang our hats on what was a shall and what was a must when we were citing any findings.
Okay.
So maybe the attorney can help us with that.
Yeah, I wish Scott was on. So maybe what we need to do then is table this for now. And then do
I
a
will
little-
say, so we use the same logic that Cleone does, but again, I work for the federal government. And a quick Google search, shall means you're pretty much going to do it.
Well, I just Googled it and I found one. Use must, not shall, to impose requirement. Shall is ambiguous and rarely occurs in everyday conversation. The legal community is moving to a strong preference of must as a clearer way to access the requirement or obligation. And like you say, it's shall can be confusing because it also could mean may, will, or, or must. It's,
So shall implies it's optional, maybe,
yeah.
There was
Correct.
whereas
Yeah.
must is required.
correct.
Okay.
And there was
So-
a legal reference in the books of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, which was updated in March 2020. Shall will no longer be used. It can be considered confusing because it can also mean may.
Okay. Tom, I was going to ask, Tom, would you mind, similar to what you volunteered to do earlier, do a search on shall, find how many occurrences there are and see, we can table this for now and then discuss it next time. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yeah, and some of the
Yes.
some of the shells are probably okay, but there's a lot there to consider.
And I was just wondering, in some cases, can the word should be replaced with, replace shall, where should may be a little stronger?
I think that's a good question.
I would propose may. I think may is probably more clear, just to kind of piggyback on what Darren is saying. May and must are clearer terms, I believe.
Well, I thought we were just saying we're going to replace all the shalls with must. Is that not true?
No, because there's some shalls which are optional that should remain. There's some shalls that should be must. Now I feel silly saying all this.
Okay, all right. I got you. All right. So may, you think may is a better term than shall?
That's what I'm proposing.
Have to look at the definitions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think where you need it to be strong statement, I would say should. Where it's more optional, I would say may.
Wow, this is going to be,
Yeah. Well,
this is
just
going to be fun.
looking at that rules and procedure, city council shall from time to time establish written rules for its proceedings. But then the very next line, the rules shall be available, that should be a must.
Must.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very strongly that it should be must. Must is a universal reference. And again, I am biased because on the federal level, to Tom's point, that has never been an ambiguous term. Shall can get a little loosey-goosey, but must, I think, is pretty universally understood that it's not optional.
Okay. So let's table this for now. And let's, Tom's going to run a count to see what we've got to deal with here. And we're going to either use shall, may, or should,
Or must.
or must. Okay. All right.
You shall.
Now, it's interesting. When I wrote it down, I wrote that Mark said change should to must, but for some reason I went right to the shall. Is there a should in here that I missed, or did I just take the notation wrong? He didn't give a number, like there was a specific number. He just said in C, 26C, he said change, I wrote down change should to must, but I don't see a should anywhere.
Maybe he meant shall.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring. But all right, well, we'll come back to this one. So let me go to the next one here. To 6C15, change the 5-year term for the city manager and the city attorney for 3 years. This was something that came up from multiple people. They felt that the 5-year term that we had was too long, and that it should be either 3 or 4 years. Let me go back to 6. C15. Wait a minute, that's 26C15?
That was probably from my notes because I was writing what somebody said. So I'm wrong on the two. So I apologize. And
Yeah,
that,
I don't, the number is wrong.
yeah, the two
Um,
was wrong. I apologize. I don't do
Okay,
short.
that's okay. No, please don't apologize. So let's go see where I mean, it's basically the term that we have. It's under 4, right? Section 4 would be the town manager.
And was it about the,
Right here, the city council shall approve by majority vote to a maximum 5-year renewable term.
I agree, that should be 3. I have a battle that I'm fighting with someone that's in a 5-year. 5 years is a long time to be stuck with someone who is underperforming.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
the-
so there's the balance here, and I'm with you on this. I think 3 is better, but the argument against that would be that these jobs take a while to get good at and to learn. They're complex jobs. So question would be, how long, what's reasonable tenure for a person in this position to become, adequately knowledgeable and experienced to do the job well.
well,
So if we feel 3 years is an appropriate time, then that's fine.
aren't they in their contract, how it's written, they're going to be reviewed in 3, it's 3 years reviewed to renew. It's not saying that they can't be renewed. It's not like they have a term limit. So, it's a little different than a
Right.
term.
What this does is it forces, right now, there is no term. So there's nothing that forces the review to happen unless it's spelled out in a contract.
Right.
So what we want to do is force that review to happen. Question is, do we want it to happen at a 5-year interval or a 3-year interval or a 4-year interval, whatever. So
Right.
if someone wants to make a motion, we can go forward with it.
I know the comments from the public were, the majority of them definitely were an agreement saying 5 is too long.
Right.
So wouldn't 4 years be more in alignment with most elections or some elections?
Say that again, Darren.
I said, would 4 years be like more in alignment with the election period?
Well, no, we have an election every. Oh, you saying the national election?
Yeah,
Or the
general,
state?
yeah.
4 years would be good because there were some people who were concerned about staggering, that if all of a sudden you're losing your attorney, you got new counselors coming in to review a manager that they haven't worked with. So if you've got 4 years versus 3 years, you might have a little bit more of a staggering. But
Right, that was a valid point that somebody made. So that the council terms are 3 years. And if we made the city manager a 4-year, that would help ensure that there wouldn't be necessarily new counselors that wouldn't have experience with the town manager or the city manager. I'm not sure I explained that well, but.
Yeah, but part of me thinks that because this is a public position, there should be evidence of a body of work regardless of how they overlap. So I'll put forth the motion that I, Cleone Mainville, motion to change the maximum 5-year renewal term to reflect 3-year renewable term
For the city manager.
for the city manager.
Okay.
I think 3 years is real short.
Well, we got to wait for a second on the motion. People are thinking. Or people have made up their minds.
Well, I'll add. I think 3 years is short. If there's a breach of contract because they're not doing their job, they can still be terminated, right?
Well, there would be, the town would have to buy out the contract, probably, most likely, unless they were convicted of some like felony or something like that. But if it was poor performance, normally the contracts have language that, they sort of part ways, but financially, the person, gets like a buyout or something. We have a motion on the table that has not been seconded. That implies that people aren't ready or don't agree with it or aren't ready to move on it yet.
You know what? Fine, I'll second it.
Okay.
So here, and I'll just add my logic. I think we're just making the recommendation for it to go from 5 to 3, right? Like it could get to the town rules and procedures of the town council and they'll be like, no, go pound sand, we're leaving it at 5. So let's make the recommendation. If they don't like it, then that's on them.
Okay. Any further discussion on Cleone's motion?
So,
Go ahead, Darren.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I'm just leaning towards 4, so I don't know how this works. Once there's a motion, I don't know how that works, but
Well, then if you're set on 4, then, or something other than what Cleone motioned, then you would vote against the motion.
okay.
So are we open for discussion right now? Is that we are, right?
Yes, we
So
are.
from the reason why I say 3, there's not a lot of difference between 4 and 5, right? And so if you're doing 4, why go through the motion of changing it from 5? 3 is, usually you get a year to kind of get acclimated, 2 to implement and leave your mark, and then by the 3rd year, you can either extend, to your point, Janet, that it is renewable. It's not like you end the contract at that point. But once you get to, for me, I don't see the difference between 4 and 5. And I'm thinking about the worst case scenario. If someone is underperforming, nothing illegal or anything like that, then you either have to suffer for the 4 to 5 years or buy them out of the contract. That 3-year period should be enough time for them to demonstrate and provide a body of work that you can say that I feel confident to move forward with another 3-year contract. Because then if you do 4, then it's 8, right? Like the increments are larger. And so you are locked into this bigger chunks of time. So that's why I am advocating for the 3 versus the 4 or the 5.
That makes sense. I was on the fence either way, but that definitely makes sense.
So Cleone, you just made me think of something. It's a contract that stipulates both parties have to be engaged for 5 years, right? So like the town is stuck with whatever the length is. Is the particular employee also stuck here? Or are we going to have a high turnover of this position every 3 years, every 36 months, and then have a 12-month lag of the person catching up because they performed so well in that 36 months, they go and get a better job somewhere else?
I mean, do we want someone who doesn't want to be here because you're locked into a contract?
If they're kicking butt, yep, absolutely.
Without having access to someone's contract and seeing how they negotiate their departure, it's hard for me personally to speak on that.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we don't know, in terms of town managers, city managers these days, is 5 years the standard sort of contract that people negotiate? And if it is, then it might be hard for us to hire someone to a 3-year contract. But that's going to be something that the council is going to have to deal with. I mean, they're the ones that negotiate the contracts. They know more than we know about the process and how it works. So if they see 3 years coming from us, and we have good reasons for why we want 3 years, but they say realistically, we're never going to get anybody to join our town because no one will agree to a 3-year contract, then they're going to have to change it.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And I know
Yeah.
there's cost savings, right? The longer the contract is, the more savings that the town will have. But to your point and Tom's point, ours is a recommendation. And if the town council have visibility to more information, then they will make the final determination.
Yep.
And now I have a question. If we said it was 3 years, the contract was 3 years, would that mean every 3 years you'd have a new council and a new manager?
This has nothing to do with the council. Well, as far as, the council, okay, I see what your point is. The councils are all on staggered 3-year terms. So
Okay.
every year, only 3 councilors are up for reelection. Out of the 9 that we have, only 3 every year are up for reelection. So this particular thing that we're discussing is only for the town manager right now. I'm not sure, did that answer your question, Darren?
Yes.
Okay.
So the other question I would have is, would 3 years be enough time for a manager to get a handle on, or have a handle on what other people, what has been, because sometimes there may be a lot going on, and some things may take some time. But let's say some projects may take several years to complete or to really get in motion. And let's say you have a manager who's involved in a project, he starts a project, it may take him a couple of years to get the project started, and then another manager comes in and takes over the project. That could be a little bit, little difficult. It could be not very productive.
Yeah.
So just to emphasize, right, this is not saying, we're not proposing, and I'm not proposing that we turn over manager every 3 years. It's just to make sure that their term is punctuated with an evaluation to say, we see good effort, we see good work, and we are comfortable with moving forward with another 3-year contract. So I am not proposing that the 3-year renewable term means that we're turning over a new manager every 3 years. It's just a time period to reflect and look and see if the effort that's been put forward over the next 3 years gives us the confidence to say, yes, we're confident to see that the efforts lend itself to extend the contract for another 3 years. It doesn't necessarily mean that there'll be a turnover every 3 years.
That's a great explanation, Cleone. So it benefits the
Yeah, that
town.
is.
It benefits the town to have this process work this way. Because then, like she said, if you've got someone who's not performing, then why stretch it out 5 years? This at least gives the town an opportunity to cut the ties and move on potentially with someone else, so. Okay, good discussion. Anything else on this one? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the motion. So Josh, we'll need a roll call on this. This is section 4-1.
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
That was such a reluctant yes,
I
Tom.
know, really.
It's a half a yes.
Fine.
Okay, now, Mark Lindy had also mentioned doing the same thing for the attorney. So let me find, I'm gonna do a search on attorney. That's section 5.3. Okay, right here. So it says the appointment for the city attorney. There shall be a legal officer of the city appointed to the city council by the city council to a maximum 5-year renewable term. Question is, do we want to reduce the term here as we did for the city manager?
Plus the manager potentially leaving at the same time. Is that good or bad? You know, it
Yeah,
depends on
so,
what the reason they're leaving is, but
yeah,
Are
I
we
think
assuming that these people are hired at the same time and the 5-year expiration maximum lands on the same time? That doesn't seem, that doesn't seem that would be the case. That means they would all have to be hired at the same time so that these 5-year intervals come up at the same time.
right.
yeah, I think that would be highly unlikely, but is it a possibility that they could expire on the same time, the same year? Possibly, maybe it may, so maybe there's something we should put in here to at least the attorney one, if we agree that it should be staggered from the city manager. So it prevents that from happening.
But if they're both rotten eggs, let them go at the same time.
I know. So it's you can't cover all bases on it.
Well, unfortunately, they're two critical positions. So, I mean, if you were running a business and you had your two senior people, I mean, would you want to let them go both at the same time? I don't know. I mean,
If they're not, if they're underperforming, absolutely yes. Why keep one and have one out the door? That's what I'm.
well, I guess there's an issue of transfer of knowledge to their successors.
Yeah, institutional knowledge is not something that you can like put in a textbook or a manual.
Yeah.
I agree with you too, Cleone, but if you have a gap like that, like succession planning could become a nightmare.
I mean, I think it would work fine if we said, say maximum, if you want to do 3 years here, renewable term, and then comma, staggered from the city manager term.
So how would you implement that, right? Because then if they're hired on the same day, the same year, then how do you enforce that if in each of their contracts it says a maximum 5 years? And is that realistic to at the 4th year or the 3rd year know that there's a problem, but because we don't want to have this deficit, we'll keep you on? I'm sure that there are provisions if you are without legal representation that you could have someone in the interim or a temp or something. And do we need to contemplate that now versus having that be contemplated by those who have more visibility to what can happen or what the options are when you don't have a full-time lawyer on board?
Well, a lot of towns actually hire law firms that specialize in municipal law. And on any given day, you could have 3 or 4 attorneys working for the town on different projects where we have one full-time attorney dedicated to us. So there's pluses and minuses to both. But back to the 5 years here. Is there anyone interested in motioning to reducing this term?
I, Cleone Mainville, motion to reduce the 5-year renewable term for the attorney to 3-year renewable term.
Okay. Is there a second?
Darren Boston, second motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, then Josh, we'll need a roll call. This is on section 5-3A.
And you said city attorney, correct?
It's, yes, the city attorney. And it's revising the term from 5 years down to 3.
5-3. Okay, thank you. Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you.
You're a comedian tonight.
I try.
It's nice to have some brevity during this serious discussion, you know? Thanks, Tom. All right, let's go back to the list.
This is being recorded, remember that.
And I will watch it every day, Darren.
All right, the last item that Mark brought up was reducing signature requirements for elected positions to 50 for the district and 100 for at large. I think right now it's basically at 100 for both. Let's go back and see if we can find that section in the charter.
Section 7.
Is it 7 or is it
7.
1? Is it 7? Okay, did you find it, Janet?
I believe it's section 7-3
All right, let me find, I'll share my screen in a minute here.
or
I just-
somewhere around there.
Yes, 7.3, 7.3A. Let me pull up the charter. Okay. And this was something that got brought up multiple times from several people. Mark just happened to be the first one. So signature requirements are under 7.3A. The number of signatures of voters required to place the name of a candidate on the official ballot to be used in an election shall be as follows. For an office which is to be filled by voters of the whole city, which is an at-large position, not less than 150. For an office which is to be filled by voters of a district, not less than 100. So Mark is suggesting 50 for district and 100 for at large. And I think the rationale right now is that there are fewer and fewer people that are interested in running. So if there's anything we can do to, help, entice or make it easier for people to get on the ballot, less signatures gathered is heading in the right direction for that. So
There were some citizens that even said less than 50, so.
yep. There was one citizen that said remove it altogether,
Right.
but I'm not sure we want to go that route.
Yeah, I have to agree with Mark. We have many elections where folks are uncontested, and anything that we can do to make this process more inclusive, the better, right? Because depending on what demographic you fall into or where you work or if you have children or not, you may not have enough time, resources to get that 150 signatures. And so if we had like clogged races where there's so many people and you needed to be able to kind of dwindle that down so that those who are on the ballot have a good representation or support behind them, I could see that, but there's so many positions that continue to be elected because no one else is running against them. And so I would definitely be in support of reducing that threshold.
Okay. So the question is, do we think 50, if we all agree that reduction is the right way to go here, do we think 50 and 100 is good, or should we even go further to make maybe 25 for district and 50 for at large?
I like the 25-50.
Okay. Anyone else?
So this is unusual for me. The 25 seems a little bit low. I would want to know that they have some level of advocacy or outreach, that they could at least get 50 people, right? Because they, at the same time, they do need to be the voice of some people in their district. So I like the idea of the 50, and maybe it's 50 for both, but 25 does seem a little on the low side.
Okay.
But that's just to get on the ballot, though, right, Cleone? Like, if they really have advocacy and outreach, they'll win the election. If not, their name just shows up on a piece of paper.
Good point. Good point.
Right? Like, I'd rather have the option to pick between 50 people, that's a hyperbole, on the ballot, because more people could try to get involved, at least get their name out there and get some recognition, right? And if they don't win the first time, that's just incentive to go and push it again the next year.
Yeah, I mean, so this really has to do with, going door to door, gathering signatures or standing up at the transfer station. It's getting yourself at least on the ballot, and then let's then see what happens after that. But it does this is going to make it much easier for people that are hesitant to want to spend the time and effort needed to do this.
I mean, there are municipalities that don't require signatures at all. You just have to fill out a piece of paper. Like,
Okay.
So you'll be thinking of doing the counselor at large less than 150, and that's for 7 districts. What were you thinking of the counselor at large? I missed what somebody said.
Yeah, so Mark had suggested 50 and 100, and I threw out 25 and 50. But I certainly understand Cleone's point as well. I mean, in a town where we have almost 20,000 registered voters, trying to get 100 signatures if you're running at large, I mean, doesn't sound like a huge effort to me, but 100 is 100.
The 7, so you've got more people.
You're cutting out, Janet. What did you say?
There's 7 districts, so you would figure even if you were doing 25, that's 150. So that wouldn't be unreasonable, because they want to represent the whole town versus just one district. So, but I don't know if I'd go less than 100 for a counselor at large.
Okay.
They'd have to put that effort.
Yeah.
When somebody's not going to put effort, then what are they going to do when they get in there? Are they not gonna put effort?
But you know what? I'm gonna side with Thomas in this, Tom, because I really would want this to get away from a popularity contest, because sometimes what happens here is that those who have lived here a really long time, they may not necessarily have innovative ideas or the best interests of the entire community or their district, more so than someone that's new. And so if we do lower that threshold, then you get away from that popularity contest, right? Because in some cases, those who know everybody and is here may not be the best voice and representation of, say, someone who works outside of Bridgewater and they're commuting or so forth. So I think with the lower number, then it does remove that, and then people will more likely vote on position and what they stand for versus this popularity contest that I think sometimes can play out in a small community like ours.
And Janet, to address the, like, if they get in there and do nothing, we're establishing a recall provision, right? Like, if they're really truly that terrible, there
Yeah.
are remedies to the problem.
No,
But
I was
anybody that's going to
just
take the time to do this, yeah.
I was just simplifying it because you're talking about working to get signatures. You know, there's going to be work involved. So, but I do feel 100, 150 is too high.
Okay. Well, if someone would like to make a motion with a set of numbers, we will see where it goes.
I'm going to go too low if I make the motion, so I'm just going to throw that out there. Or not, fine. I, Thomas Golden, make a motion to set the signature requirement for the at-large counselor to 100 and the district counselor to 50.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Darren Boston, second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. We will move to a roll call vote. Josh, this is on section 7.3A. We're reducing the signature requirements to get on the ballot for any, this is really any elected official. Yes.
Leonie,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Thank you. And it seems like Tom and Cleone didn't want to vote.
I
guys
was gonna
wanted to
make
go
up
lower, you
ridiculous
should've
numbers like
motioned
63 and
lower.
47. So
Okay.
Yeah, the reason
all right,
why-
that was it
can
for
you hear
Mark
me?
Lindy.
Yes, we can hear
Fran
you.
Jeffries, let me go back to the list.
Oh.
Leonie was saying something.
What's that?
Leonie was
Yeah,
saying,
the reason for the shift in my tone was that I thought Tom was going to propose 25-50, so I was surprised when he put 50-100.
Oh, okay.
same here.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
expecting-
do you need to change that? Do you need to document that?
what?
No, I'm talking about Ed.
Yeah, I had a problem here, so I'm
Okay.
back. For some reason, my share dropped. All right, so what we've got here is we've got not less than 100,000 and 50 from the district, right? Okay. Got that. I'll save that. All right, I'm going to stop my share now. I'm going to share again, and we're going to go back to the list. All right, so we've covered Mark's suggestions. Fran Jeffries, reduce and eliminate the signature requirements. We've done that. She liked the 5-year term. I guess what she really liked was the fact that we put a term on there because there's no term currently today. So that's not necessarily saying that she wanted it to be specifically at 5 years. She just liked the fact that we had put a term in there. So we've dealt with that. The citizen responses verbiage that we put in there, she said the follow-ups that we have in there need to be improved. I think she wanted maybe a little more specifics around, when they should be responding. Should we put a timeline or schedule or something in there? I'm not sure how realistic that is. So
Didn't Janet speak to that when we were talking about citizen comments, that a response should be made at the following meeting? I thought we had covered that.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually in I don't have the town code, the big, huge 100-page thing, but there is a spot in there that I had read to the town council. it talks about them having to, expected to respond. Even if it's a matter of saying that they're going to look into that, I mean, some type of response. They can respond during the meeting, you know, if there's an answer to their question right then. Otherwise, they can put it off, but there is a wording in there that they're supposed to be responding in some way, depending on what the question or issue is.
Yeah, that was, I think, section 14 of the administrative code talked about that.
Yeah,
So
somewhere.
here's what we've got in here, and this is under section 26C, rules and procedures. Item 7 here, all meetings provide for public comment. Blah, blah, blah. City council members are responsible for providing follow-up to citizen comments. The question is, do we want to, you know, put something else in there to put more teeth into it, or is this a good first step?
It does leave it open-ended. It doesn't say how much time, but it can depend on what the comments are about. They may not be able to give an answer within 2 weeks either, but some type of follow-up to the citizen comments is supposed to be done. I think it's even if it's to say, we're working on that and we can't do it until, you know, la-di-da-da-da. So, but that was the first step.
I'm not sure what else we can actually put in here that would be realistic. Because you know, to put a specific time frame in here, I don't know.
Hard.
You know, it's very hard because depending on the subject matter, it could vary tremendously, you know?
So I'll put in my federal experience. The cop-out that the federal government uses a lot is reasonable time, right? And so I've spent many hours contemplating what reasonable means, but that is a word that is used. City council members are responsible for providing follow-up to citizen comments within a reasonable time. And then you can have debates about what reasonable is, but that will kind of give you that loose time frame with what one would consider a reasonable time frame.
That's good.
I like that, Cleone, thank you. So I typed it in here just to see what it would look like. City council members are responsible for providing follow-up to citizen comments within a reasonable time frame. Good.
Yep, that gave it
Okay.
the closure.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna need can you make a motion on that, Cleone?
I, Cleone Mainville, propose, I don't know where we are actually.
We are
Section.
in section 26C, number
Okay.
7.
I, Cleone Mainville, propose that we add the term within a reasonable time frame in section, scroll up again.
26C7.
In section 26C-7.
Okay, is there a second?
I, Thomas Golden, will second.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Josh, we're going to need a roll call on this. This is a change to section 2-6C7.
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Great, thank you. All right, now we're going to get into a fun one here. All right, so Dave Moore spent some time talking about Article 9.1 and 9.2. This is where we talk about conflicts of interest. This is the prohibition area of the charter. And so he was basically saying that what we have listed here is kind of repetitious of what the state ethics regulations talk about. There's some redundancy there. He said, rather than have this verbiage in there, why don't we just have a blanket statement that would basically say that all members of city government are expected to adhere to all state regulations concerning behavior as a public official. So I will take us to that section so you can see what we're talking about here. This is 9192. So 9.1 is conflicts of interest. Now this is green, I think, because we moved it. If I remember correctly, we moved it from another section. Let me just go back and look at the rules and procedures version that I have here and see what we did with this one.
Did you separate it out?
That's what we did. Yeah, it was one giant paragraph that was kind of high. It had the numbers were inside the paragraph. So we just basically broke it out for improved readability. So Dave's point is that, the state has, what is it? Section 268A, I believe, is the ethics, MGL ethics section, which, if somebody does something wrong, then we just follow state law. My view on that is, yeah, we have state law, but this charter is our local constitution. And I think it's important to have a statement in here about, conflicts of interest. And what we have stated here is general in nature, but it sets the tone for what we're expecting of our public officials.
I agree.
It does say here that the city council shall implement, this is the shall again, this prohibition by ordinance, the terms of which shall include but not limited to these following items here. So it sort of provides a framework for additional regulations that our community may put above and beyond what the state has. Maybe there are towns that have a lot stricter regulations in this area than what the state provides. So, that's one of the reasons why we have this form of government, because we want to self-govern. So this doesn't preclude us from not, doing what Dave wants us to do, meaning that if someone has committed an ethics violation or a conflict of interest violation, we can address it locally, but we could also file a complaint with the state, depending on what it was, and have the state take action as well. That's my 2 cents. And Janet, I heard you say you kind of agree.
I agree that I have no problem with section 9-1 in there. I think it should still be there.
Okay. Anyone else have an opinion either way?
I'm fine leaving it.
Yeah, so am I.
Okay. Cleone?
I'm fine with me too.
Okay. What about Dave's suggestion that, because I thought maybe it would make sense to even put the blanket statement in there that he was talking about. We could leave what we have, but we could also add something that, all members of city government are expected to adhere to all state regulations concerning behavior as a public official.
Is that something you'd want to state in the beginning?
Well, I don't know where it would go. Maybe it would go in the beginning. You mean the beginning of the charter or the beginning of Article 9?
Yeah, in the beginning, like in that first paragraph, maybe somewhere.
Yeah, this could actually become item B. We could put an item A in there that would sort of make that general statement.
Yeah. That sounds reasonable.
Let me just show you what it might look like. Oh, why didn't that do that? Thought it was gonna give me a B, but it didn't. Maybe because I'm, huh. It's not, it was manually typed in, I guess. I'll just type it in the way he's got it written. We can tweak it later, but sorry for my speedy typing. Okay. That look okay? That's something we want to consider adding?
Yeah, I would suggest that we put the citation. Is it the MLG or whatever versus state regulations? State regulation concerning behavior as public official as articulated or referenced in whatever that.
You can't
This
use
was-
the MGL though. That's Mass General Law versus state regulations, right? Like laws are the governing thing, then regulations are promulgated by agencies.
Oh, right. So it'd be the same as like an ordinance in Bridgewater.
Correct.
Is like a state regulation at the state level. Okay. So, I mean, what are we talking about here? Are we talking, I mean, we're expecting our city government, all members of our city government to adhere to mass general laws or just state regulations or both?
Both.
Yeah, I mean,
There is language, and it escapes me now. You can say both, and then you can defer to one of higher standard. I don't know if Tom knows this, but there is a reference where if you're referring to both state or federal, you do then need to indicate which one will be elevated if there's a conflict. So there's, it escapes me right now. I think something like,
Is
I'm
that
sorry.
adding value to this, like to specify?
I mean, what if we just did this? And we can leave it out. I just thought it might make sense to put it in there because it is sort of a blanket statement.
if we're leaving it, I would suggest and advocate that we cite what the regulations are versus it just being general.
So in this case, it would be MGL CH or whatever it is. It's I forget the nomenclature. I'd have to go back. C 268A, which is the conflicts of interest. But I mean, there are many different state regulations below that. I'm not going to cite them all. Should we take state regulations out and just leave the MGL reference in there?
I think that should be sufficient.
Could you just write adhere to MGL C 268A and any applicable state regulations?
What's an example of a state regulation? Anybody know?
The COI law, the COI reg, the conflicts of interest.
That's good.
I lost you.
Is it any, or should we be saying and all applicable?
Yeah, you're right. Okay,
Janet, to answer your question, like section 930 CMR or Code of Massachusetts Regulations 1 through 6 is the other regulations that set up the Mass Ethics Commission,
Okay.
something like that.
Should there be a space between A and B?
Paragraphs A and B.
oh,
Between A and B, should there be? Yeah.
oh, jeepers. All right.
The computer likes to do its own thing.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy.
Okay, so we've added this in there. We got to vote on it, but does that look okay for now? Someone like to make a motion to add item A under 9-1?
I, Darren Boston, make a motion to add item A under 9-1.
Hi, Janet, second.
Okay, thank you, both. Any further discussion on this? Okay, Josh, we need a roll call. We're adding item A under section 9-1.
Ed,
Yes.
Cleone,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right, the next item that Dave Moore had was under Article 2-1D, 4 and 5. He said references to a person being found guilty of a criminal act being permanently barred from participation in government. I think this needs clarification and limits. So let's go look at 2-1D. So I think he's referring, he said number 4 and 5. So this was the one that talks about being convicted of a criminal offense. That was already in there. And then we added this one here, which was conviction of a state ethics law violation. So it says convicted of the offense involving misconduct, blah, 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 held by that counselor shall be deemed to have vacated office and shall not be eligible to serve in any other elective or appointed office in the position in the city. So it doesn't say what the time frame is. Are they banished for life or not? I guess that's one of his concerns, is that he's interpreting it to mean that if somebody is convicted of an offense, that's it, they can never serve again.
That's the same in number 5.
It is, yeah, it's basically the same language. So is that what we intend to happen here?
I would say that it should be for life. You know, if you're convicted of those things, why should you be allowed to serve again?
Okay. Do you think a criminal offense has the same weight as a state ethics law violation?
I think a life ban is too extreme. I believe in rehabilitation.
I agree with Tom. I think people make mistakes and hopefully they'll learn from it, and a lifetime ban is too extreme.
Okay, so what's reasonable then if we want to set some sort of a term or period from which the individual cannot serve?
What's the longest period of time that a counselor could be in right now, 12 years.
No, well, right now it's 12, but we're changing that to be 24 years.
That's how long this person, that anybody should be banned, 24 years.
Okay,
Well, it's 4 elections for district, 4 elections for district counselor
At 3 each, right? So,
at 3 years each. So, I mean, it definitely should be more than 1 term of 3 years. It definitely should be longer than that.
how about 12 years, 4 terms? That too long?
4 elections. Well, Tom said 8 elections.
Right.
I think 12 years sounds reasonable.
For at least 12 years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we want to put a time frame just because of loopholes concern. Maybe we say terms instead or something.
And I would
Or-
say not a max, I would say it would have to be at least. Because sometimes I think it would depend on what the offense is.
You're right. Could we say something, instead of putting a time frame, could we say something about being reviewed by the council? It needs approval, review by the town attorney, and approval by the council, or something like that. So it's not a totally shut door. It's like getting what do you call it when you're in prison and you can get out early?
parole.
Parole, not parole, but you appeal your case, or you serve time, but you get out early or something. I don't know, whatever.
Well, you go before the parole board to see if you can get out early.
Yeah, yeah.
Good behavior, blah, blah, blah.
Get out of free jail card or something. So I'm just wondering, is there some verbiage we could put in there that would put it back on the town to make that decision rather than re-specify a time frame in here?
It should still be it shouldn't be immediately after they get, convicted, or not. Convicted's not the right, well, it is in there. Maybe, at least 1 election, I mean, before they can be reviewed. It doesn't have to, I would just be concerned that they would be reviewed immediately. There should be a little bit of, punishment there.
Yep, yep.
We could put something that, X amount of time pending or review by what you said, Ed, approval and review. And if they don't approve, they can't run. They can't be appointed. But there should be a little bit of a time in there, because you don't want somebody to have this and then the very next day be put before the council, which could happen.
Yeah. I guess it's just a question of coming up with the right words. I would say any any change to this would I would actually like to do some research to see if how other towns deal with this, if they have language and what the language might say, rather than trying to invent something here right now. Would it be okay to table this for now and add it to our
List.
add it to the list for follow-up? And I'll take this one.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, so this again is 9, what was it again? No, it's not 9, it's section 214D45. Okay, I think it's worth re-looking at it anyways, whether we decide to do anything about it or not, requires a little bit more, investigation. Let's go back here. So that was it for Dave. Then Joe Gillis, he was reacting to one of the slides that I had about the rollout. He said, consider placing the town manager changes as controversial. I mean, I'm not, and I think what he was saying there is, the term limit we're putting on the town manager might be considered controversial. To be honest with you, I don't think we made a lot of changes in section, let's go back and look at section 4. Article 4, I don't think we made a lot of changes to the town manager, to be honest with you.
Other
So
than,
we changed the term. Made some small changes here. We talked about the two-way communication. We talked about the quarterly informational sessions. I mean, that's not controversial. Compensation, we didn't do anything there. We talked about we clarified how to fill an absence, right? That's not controversial. And that's it. So I think maybe he was reacting to putting the term limit. But I mean, do you think that's controversial?
I
From a citizen's perspective, it might be from the town manager's perspective, but I'm sorry, Jana, what did you say?
Oh, no, I don't feel that would be like a separate question on the ballot type thing. Controversial.
Right. How do other people feel about that? Should we consider, I mean, as we update that, especially when we present to the town council, should we recommend placing the town manager changes as a separate ballot question?
Like you, I think he was probably referring to the renewable, because I don't see anything else that would be,
Yeah,
anybody would be looking at.
right. Okay. Well, unless someone wants to, move on something regarding this, I'm not sure what to do about it. I don't think there's enough strength behind this comment to take any sort of action on it. So,
It's kind of vague. I mean, I can see if there was a specific argument.
yeah. Okay, we are 4 minutes away from our meeting time ending here. We made it through the first public forum comments. We still got 2 more to go. Do we want to adjourn, or do we want to extend some time tonight to try and get a little bit further?
I do have to leave for a 8 o'clock meeting, so does that can allow you to continue once I log off?
Well, we still have a quorum, so we can vote,
Okay.
Cleone. We obviously,
right.
I'm going to miss your feedback. It's been very valuable to us. So the option is just follow up. Our next meeting is going to be June 2nd, the first Wednesday. Now, we only have 2 meetings. We would only have 2 meetings scheduled in June 2nd and June 16th. And we've got to get through the rest of the comments, and then we've got to go back and have our second round of voting, and then we got to finalize what we're going to present to the town council at the end of June. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to get this all done in 2 more meetings. We may end up having to schedule another meeting in June. So question is that something that people would entertain or not?
Well, so Ed, here, I don't know why it does the reverb once in a while. Since we've now gone through one of the public forum sessions and look at the feedback, right? Would it behoove us to have everybody do that independently before the next meeting, which is is it next week or the week after?
Week after.
And
Well,
then,
yeah, I mean, that's the intent when I sent it out, was that people kind of go through it. But now maybe with an increased focus on it is what you're saying?
yeah, and like these very bullet pointed, these are the changes we're recommending based on the feedback. And then we could just vote, like, instead of doing the flip between the charter and that, if there's no discussion on something, vote and move, vote and move, vote and move.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and it sounds like it'd be a great way to move it forward more quickly, but the problem is a lot of these things require discussion and debate. And I'm not sure we can actually speed that up because everybody's got a view and, the feedback is good. I mean, so my concern is the Saturday public forum, we've got almost 2 pages of notes to go through for that one forum. Now, some of the things we've already addressed, but there's a lot of good stuff there that we don't want to skim over. I think we do owe it to the citizens to take our time to look through this. So I'm not sure there's another option than maybe have another meeting, an additional meeting to go through this. But as you said, Tom, make sure everybody's prepared, to have that discussion.
How much of the public forum comments are left? You said
So we got through one meeting. So we've got 1 page of,
We have like 3 pages, right? I think.
yeah, one page or half a page from the 13th, and then almost 2 pages from the 15th.
And some of the ones from the Saturday session, and I'll plead ignorance because I wasn't at the Thursday session. The Saturday session, there was some impassioned opinions. Is how I'm going to phrase it.
Yeah, no, there were. I mean, Carlton Hunt.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say his name, but sure.
We've got over a dozen comments from him, and a lot of them are good. I mean, so we don't want to skim over these things. We want to take our time and really make sure that we're doing the right thing for the town. So, can you guys stay on for some more time tonight? Maybe another half hour?
And I'm happy to do that. That's fine. You're losing 3 of your committee members. That's all. But I'd rather do it now than have another meeting in June.
Well,
personally,
we might be able to get through the 13th if we hang in there for another half hour, 45 minutes.
Okay.
I was going to ask if we can just to get that over with because it's just going to.
Yep.
Behind, so I'm okay.
All right, somebody make a motion to extend the meeting, please.
Josh, can you stay?
Did we lose Josh?
He's
Yeah,
on mute.
I'll stay for you guys.
I appreciate
Thank you, Josh.
No worries.
I, Thomas Golden, motion to extend the meeting to 8:30 p.m.
Okay, is there a second?
Hi, Janet, second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, Josh, a roll call vote, please.
Ed,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, let me pull up the list now. Thank you guys for that. So as I said, we finished the 11th. So now we move to Thursday, the 13th. Sam Baumgarten. Some of his were more just clarifications. He mentioned the town versus city discussion. He prefers, that we stay a town, but he understands why we're choosing to update the charter to city after that was explained to him. He thought the extending the term for 24 years was excessive. We explained to him the rationale behind that. But, he just feels 8 terms is too much. So let me ask a question. Are we open to going back and revising that at this point? Or are we feeling like we're going to that's what we want to stay with.
Ed, I had a question. Excuse me. I was trying to relook, and I can't even remember what article it is for that portion.
Do you want to look at the charter? Hold on.
And I was rereading it, and first off, I think some people were thinking that it could be I mean, it's possible if the person keeps getting reelected that it would be 24 years in a row, 8 elections in a row. But I don't think some people realize that it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be in a row. They could lose and then redo it. It's the number of elections. But I was reading something and I was confused because I was wondering if it is the way you said that you could be 4 elections for a district and then go on to being 4 elections for city councilor at large.
Yeah,
It didn't seem like it. I don't know how I want to word it. If I can find it, I could.
I know, I'm trying to find it too.
I was writing down my notes and I forgot to write down what I was looking at. But it said something about, 4, we had it written as 4 elections. And then it almost sounded like you couldn't do, if it's 4 elections no matter what, but we did say that they could be a counselor at large. But I don't think it went with what we were saying of 8 elections, 24 years. I don't know how to explain it. I have to find it and I can't remember.
I'm having trouble finding it. I should have just searched on it.
I apologize. I was going to write it down, but I was in a hurry the other day and I caught it. And
Where the heck is it?
anybody know? We need a table of contents. Do we?
Here it is, right here.
Fine.
Section 2. All right, where's my cursor? Section 2-1 under term limits. No person shall be eligible, shall be eligible to be elected as a district council member of the city council if at any point during the term of office for which the person may be elected, the service of the eligible person would exceed 4 elections to the city council. Then it says, no person shall be eligible to be elected as an at-large council member of the city council if at any point during the term of office for which the person may be elected, the service of the eligible person would exceed 4 elections to the city council. For the purpose of this section, prior service as an at-large councilor shall not prevent seeking election as a district councilor. Prior service as a district councilor shall not prevent seeking election as an at-large councilor.
I thought there was a lot that's something about that's, going from one to the other, but I don't know. I don't want to complicate things. But I think some people, when they see that 24 years, they don't realize that it doesn't have to be consecutive, like they'll be in there, but it possibly could be if somebody keeps getting reelected because people keep electing them, but.
Well, I mean, we say exceed 4 elections. We don't say consecutive elections, right? So
Right.
you could get elected and then take a break, come back and get elected again over a period of 20 years. You could be elected to four different times.
Right.
So
I don't know what I'm reading, but if
Yeah.
I find it, I'll mention it next time. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. So at this point, it sounds like we're not planning to update this, right? We're okay with it?
I'm
Right.
okay with it.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's go back to Sam's comments. So section 3.1, he said needed clarification on this portion. City employees are ineligible to serve as a city council member, but then it says city employees may not be elected to or considered to any other multi-member body without. So let's go back, let's go look at section 3.1. Part of it was just clarification, I think, for him.
Yeah, remember, once you explained to him that it was a committee or board you were referring to, then he understood what the differences were, but initially it was hard to understand, which I probably was a little confused initially when I first was looking at it, but now that I know, it's okay.
Yeah. So here it says, any voter can be eligible. However, to be eligible, you cannot simultaneously hold other elected or appointed offices, or to a city office. The City of Bridgewater employees who would otherwise be eligible to serve as a member of the City Council are ineligible to serve as a City Council member due to the inherent conflicts of supervisory inversion. So this would basically mean you would be your boss's boss. If you were an employee of the town and you ran for City Council, you would then be the boss of the town manager, who was your boss as an employee. So that's a conflict. We can't have that happen. City of Bridgewater employees who would otherwise be eligible to serve may not be elected to or considered for appointment to any other multi-member body of the city without first obtaining prior and annual approval from the City Council in consultation with the city attorney, affirming that such service would not place the candidate in a position having oversight, direction, or control over any aspect of their city employment, their supervisors, or department. So I think you're right. Once we explained it to him, then he was clear on it. So it just meant having that discussion.
And multi-member, I did look, it is in the definition.
Yeah.
I did look at that to make sure it was there so people would know.
Okay. So we've got through the first three of his. The last one, he said it seemed like a contradiction, but once he understood, that was related to number
Yeah.
3. All right, so we've covered Sam's comments. Janet Dye is a library trustee, and she just basically chimed in and thanked us for including the recommendations from the library, which, by the way, I think I told you maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, Matt had reached out to me and asked me to send him what we had in the charter. And he was going to have the trustees take one final review of it and get back to me. He has not yet got back to me. So I reached out to him the other day on email to say that we need to wrap this up. So please, please get us the final version of what they have.
They had a meeting last night, and I think that I'm going to guess they talked about it. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So that.
Janet did say that they were still looking at it at the time of this public forum.
Right. Okay. Mary Goulart commented on 26C7. This was considered putting in a time frame for the city councilor responses to citizens. So we addressed that already, right? By putting in the adequate time frame.
Right.
And then 26C15.
That
she
was
said,
I put the wrong thing there, I think.
Both of those are the same thing, aren't they?
One was this during citizens forum, and then this one was, or maybe is this? Let's go look at 2615. Let's look at both of them actually and see. Uh, 26. Okay, so 267 was this here. City council members are responsible for providing follow-up within a reasonable time frame. We changed that one. And then 15 says, city council members shall regularly seek and promote two-way feedback that encourages community residents to voice their concerns. This was Cleone's insertion here that we approved. It basically talks about them being proactive in terms of reaching out to their constituents. Mary's comment was, it was too open-ended. What's a reasonable time to respond for follow-up? Not clear. Expectations seem open-ended. She said we should consider requiring counselors to hold regular constituent meetings. So I think she made some good points, but I struggle with this one. I mean, every counselor is going to manage their job as counselors differently, right? Some are going to be more proactive than others. Some of the, they're going to do things differently. So they're going to communicate differently. How much can we put in the charter to constrain or require them to do certain things? I mean, this paragraph, I think, kind of talks about what we expect them to do. It just doesn't tell them how to do it. It describes the what, and it expects them to figure out how to accomplish it. I'm not sure Mary's comment, although it's certainly a valid comment, is something we want to address in the charter. That's my view.
I would agree with you, Ed, and I'm going to defer to something Scott used to say, that was, let the ballot do the talking. If people aren't executing correctly, it'll come out in the election.
Okay, good point. Yep.
And we do have a shall in that paragraph, number 15 at the
Yeah,
bottom.
shall set clear expectations. We could say, we could change that one, right? We could say must. She wants to put some teeth into it.
Mhm.
Or will?
Yeah, that's right.
Say will. Can we add will to the list?
Yep.
Oh, right. We got shall, may, should. Will is like must, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So is the consensus then that, we understand her comment, but we feel we've addressed it properly?
Yes.
Yes, because residents are invited to engage into a conversation, and then there's another paragraph which covers.
Yep. Okay. All right. And then moving on to Christina Ajamian. She said in 4.7, consider adding the assistant town manager as a priority during the selection process to fill the vacancy. So this one scares me a little bit. Let's go to 4.7. Oops. So this section deals with a temporary absence of the town manager. And it says here, the town manager, city manager shall appoint a person from the department heads to act when the city manager is absent for 30 days or less. The city council shall appoint a person to act for the city manager in the event that the city manager is absent for more than 30 days. No person appointed by the city manager to act shall serve more than 21 days without approval by the city council. So Christina's comment was she wanted us to consider adding that the assistant town manager would get a priority in the selection process.
Yeah, she felt that it should be mentioned somewhere in there is what her comment was. She was saying, why wouldn't it be the vice manager?
I don't, to be honest with you, I mean, I think in general, it's probably a good comment to make. However, it really depends on the capabilities of the assistant manager. I mean, what if the assistant manager is a average, performer, but say that the police chief is a high potential, high performing person, the city manager may feel much more comfortable making the police chief the acting manager for that period of time. I mean, it's almost like it's implied that the city manager would consider the assistant, right? It's like the president and the vice president. It's almost implied that the vice president would step in sort of almost automatically. But it doesn't always work that way. It really depends on the situation, what's going on at the time. I mean, what if during the manager's absence, there was some particular issue going on that it made more sense maybe for the finance director to be the temporary person because there was some sort of a major financial crisis going on. Any comments? Everybody's still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think that the city manager would appoint, let's say, if there's specific tasks, it may not just be one person who's going to complete the tasks. The financial officer might complete certain tasks in the manager's absence, and someone else may complete other, you know,
Are you saying that he could appoint more than one person? Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
yeah, I mean, because what role are they going to play? What are they going to be doing in the absence of the manager, where the manager hasn't already, or I would think would assign someone to be responsible.
It does say, you know, the way it's written here, though, it says the city manager shall appoint a person from the department heads to act. So it doesn't say appoint multiple people. It says appoint one person from the department heads. Now we could say appoint the assistant manager is not a department head, right?
Right.
So we could say the city manager shall appoint a person from the assistant manager / department heads. If we wanted to do that, to make it inclusive of the assistant manager.
Well, it doesn't sound right to say a person from the assistant manager, the assistant manager.
Right, okay, so appoint a person from the department heads or the assistant manager. Or the city manager shall appoint the assistant manager or a person from the department heads.
Well, that sounds better as far as the flow of the sentence.
Yep.
If we needed to include it, that would be the way personally.
Well, so let me ask you, Tom, how do you feel about this? Should we leave it as is, or should we add something about the assistant town manager?
I think leave it as is. Like it reads fine to me.
Yeah, I agree with Tom.
Okay, Janet?
Either way, I get what she was saying because it seems like the assistant is
Being excluded.
and not possibly considered because so you kind of wonder. I get where she's saying because, you know, like you say, President of the United States can't perform his job. The vice president is the one who fills in, and if he can't, then it, you know, trickles down. So
Yeah.
But what I would think is the department heads have a leadership role, and you'd want someone with this leadership experience to, you know, fill that position. So.
And the other is that the city manager has the assistant. So if he appoints assistant, who's going to assist the assistant? So, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? You know, so there's
That's a very strong argument. No, I think that's a strong argument. If this person, the assistant would be assistant whoever he assigns, whoever he appoints to cover for him. I would think that makes sense.
So if it's the police chief, the assistant would support the police chief.
Right, because the assistant already has their job.
Yeah.
They're the assistant. Then what are they going? Who's going to assist the assistant?
Right.
If the assistant is taken in charge.
I think Christina's view on this is that we're purposely excluding by the way this is written, we're excluding the assistant manager from being considered. And she felt that was not right. So if you read it, I mean, I think she's right, because it says shall appoint a person from the department heads to act. So now if the assistant town manager is capable of filling in,
And doing both jobs, then, yeah.
well, I mean, the police chief is going to have to, what's the police chief going to have to do if he steps into the town manager's role?
I guess they'll have to
Who's going to cover his job or her
they'll have to
job?
do both jobs, right?
That's right. You always have to do both jobs. So I mean, I can't make a motion, but I'm kind of leaning towards maybe putting something in there so it's not excluding. I mean, this almost like kind of ties the hands of the city manager. If the city manager wants to, turn the reins over to the assistant for 30 days, it sounds like he can't do that because we've limited his ability in the charter to do that.
Is there something in the town, whatever be that the vice town manager can't do something like that? If not, it could be included by what you said, Ed.
Well, I mean, the other change we could make here, we could say the city manager may appoint a person from the department heads. It doesn't say must. If we said may, then that's sort of the, he can opt out and he could select the assistant, right?
Without putting that in there?
Yeah. Because I was reading the shall as kind of a will appoint or must appoint. But maybe we just change the shall to a may. Well, I'd have to make it a may, because if we made it a should.
So however, we said the city manager may appoint the assistant manager or a person from department heads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And then-
good. You want to make
yeah.
a motion on that, Darren?
Yes, I make a motion that we add, is the assistant manager may appoint the city manager may appoint the assistant manager or a person from the department heads to act when assistant city manager is absent.
Okay, the city manager may appoint the assistant city manager or
A person,
appoint. Or do I need to say or appoint again, or just
no,
say?
I just said or a person may appoint the assistant manager or a person from the department heads.
That's good.
Yeah. May appoint the assistant city manager or a person from the department heads to act. Very good.
Do you want to fix that shall in that paragraph while we're there? I know we're tabling it, but if you're fixing the whole paragraph, the city council may appoint a person.
Yeah.
That's one down.
It doesn't, well, is that optional though? The city council may appoint it? I thought.
Or shall, will,
Yeah, that they shall, yeah.
must.
Is it a must? Or will?
Will,
Yeah, well,
I think will fits better.
yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
All right, the city council will appoint a person to act. No person, okay, good. All right, so you made a motion, but was it seconded? I don't think so, because I was making the changes. So why don't you remake the motion again, Darren?
Okay, I, Darren Boston, make a motion to allow city managers to I, Darren Boston, make a motion for the city manager to be able to appoint city assistant manager or a person from department heads to act when the city manager is absent for 30 days or less.
Okay, is there a second?
I, Thomas Golden, will second your motion, Darren.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? Okay, Josh, we're going to need a roll call on section 4-7, please. Changes to that paragraph.
Okay, Ed,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes,
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have one more item here. I can't guarantee we're going to get it done in 2 minutes. Can we just get this one item done and
Let's do it.
All right. All right, so this last one here, let me just get to it. Thank you, guys. She says in 9.9, this was the section that we added that holds the elected officials accountable for ensuring that the charter is being adhered to. She said we need to add consequences to a charter violation. So I'm not sure this is possible, but let's just take a look at it.
So Ed, I will say, as you pull that up, I don't think that belongs in the charter. I believe the administrative code, which is the enforcement tool for the charter, is where those consequences should be outlined. This just says that they have to exist. Then the town council, through the administrative code, explains what those consequences are and how they're enforced.
Okay. Should we then consider adding something that says any violations to the charter or consequences or something to consequences for violation of the charter will be addressed through ordinances issued by the city council.
Oh, shit.
You all right?
I hit the power button. Did I lose you? No. Yes.
you're still here.
My screen went dark. Everything just like died.
You may not be able to see us, but we can see you.
audio didn't die though.
That's all that matters. I tried to move the laptop.
All right, well, that's good. So, so Tom, I agree with you that we don't want to add consequences in here.
Right.
But maybe we could add a statement that would say consequences, will be, what's the word I'm looking for here? There's other statements in the charter that we use in conditions like this, where we basically pass it on to the council through an ordinance. So,
So if you want to put in a new paragraph, the city council shall be responsible for establishing
through ordinances,
penalties for violation of this charter.
the city council shall or will. Okay, the city council will.
Here, hold on. I'll type it out and then you can copy and paste it from the chat.
Actually, this needs to be inserted, not here, but right here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for staying with me here. We got through that second forum, so.
So what I put in the chart, Ed, you can copy. The city council will.
I don't see the chat. Where's the chat? Oh, there it is. Okay, there's 6 people in chat.
Yeah, there is a citizen here, I believe, or Mac iPad.
Yeah, I was wondering.
So let's do this and then ask if that Mac iPad wants to talk.
Okay, select all. Now, why isn't it won't let me select
All right,
what's in the chat? It just says select all.
Mac iPad, no thanks.
You can highlight it. You
Thank
should be
you.
able to highlight it.
I did highlight it and I right click to copy it and it just says select all. It won't let me
Right.
copy it.
Well, here would be my recommendation. I, Thomas Golden, motion to add the following language
Okay,
where Ed has his cursor. The city council will, through ordinances, establish metrics for the enforcement of this charter and penalties for violations of any subpart. I will let Scott tweak that to make it legally happy, but it's in
Okay.
there.
let me get the whole thing in there. So the city council will, comma, right, through ordinances. Where are we? Keep going.
City ordinances establish metrics.
Metrics,
Yep.
okay,
For the enforcement of this charter, as well as establish penalties for violations of any subpart above.
okay, I lost you here now, as well as established penalties.
Of any subpart above.
And you need an N in ordinances is missing an N.
Yeah, and should there be a comma after ordinances?
Yes.
I'm missing an N or ordinance, yes, I am.
Yeah,
City council will, through ordinances, establish metrics for the enforcement of this charter, as well as establish penalties for any subpart above. Okay, great. All right. So Tom, you made a motion?
Yep, to insert that language.
Okay. Can someone second it?
I, Janet, second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Tom, we're gonna, yeah, Tom. Josh, we need a roll call.
Which
On
section is that? 9F9?
9-9.
9-9.
Ed,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Great. All right, thank you for that. All right, let's, next, so we're not done with item 1, new business. We'll continue that at our next meeting and then begin looking at the round number 2 of voting. We have public comment now. Is there someone that would like to speak during public comment?
He had said no a minute ago, just FYI.
Okay. Going once, twice, 3 strikes.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Thank you.
All right.
I, Thomas Golden, motion to adjourn. Is that what you're getting at?
No, we're not there yet. Wait a minute. Action item for our next meeting is again to look at the round 2 voting, and then we're going to prep for the final readout of the council. I still don't know what exact date we're going to present to the council. It's either going to be the 29th or the 22nd, but I'll keep you posted on that. So, all right. Someone like to make a motion to adjourn, Tom?
Thomas Golden, motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Darren Buster, second motion.
Thank you, Darren. Any further discussion? All right, I just want to thank you guys for hanging in there for an extra half hour. Appreciate it very much and enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you on June 2nd.
Okay.
Thanks.
Have a nice
Have a good
evening.
night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
night.
All right, good night.
Do we need to vote?
For what?
During the meeting?
Okay.
Okay.